So gluten is a
Yeah.
protein. It's from the Latin gluten, glue, a composite found in wheat and related grains, including barley and rye. This comes from the Wikipedia. In individuals with celiac disease, consumption of gluten causes adverse health issues ranging from abdominal bloating, gas, diarrhea, all that wonderful stuff. So gluten sensitivity affects a greater portion of the population, but people who have this deadly celiac disease, it only makes up for about 0.5 to 1% of the population.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny.
So I'm gonna
There's
throw
another
this.
there's another disease called Hashimoto's thyroid syndrome that also is a gluten it's related to celiac disease. It's I think it's more common.
Mm-hmm.
You're and there are various reasons for it. I don't think it's conspiracy theory, but there are various reasons that sound conspiratorial for why there's been such a gigantic increase in the number of people who find themselves gluten intolerant. And I don't think, I mean, it could be, look, you have your
Let me.
your
I'm gonna
hangers
do
on.
my
Yeah.
theory
Okay, go
because
to
this
town,
is the
man.
theory.
Yeah,
This is a conspiracy theory.
is
Gluten
it?
sensitivity is a conspiracy designed to regulate the world's food supply by imposing standards on food production and consumption and using the methods of social engineering to either starve the population or use applied behavioral science to manipulate consumers into buying and consuming pricier gluten-free products. This is how easy it is because I just made
No,
that
that's
up.
organic.
I made it
you're
up.
going for the organic. Yeah,
Right off the top of my
more
head.
like
No,
that.
it does connect though. You mentioned organic. That does connect because it's you can. Okay, this is all this is the seed of an idea. That's where a conspiracy starts because as soon as this goes on the air and somebody listens to it, they're going to be like, oh, come on. And then 5 minutes later, they're going to stop in their tracks and say, wait a minute. And then it's going to get all crazy and weird. And, you're going to have
Well,
like a
you
lot
you
of...
want to hear an actual like plausible conspiracy theory when it comes to gluten? I
Do
have
it.
one. Gluten is a protein found in wheat. It's when you make your pizza crust, what you're really doing is massaging that gluten and making it chewier. The more gluten you have in
Yeah.
the more you work a dough, the more gluten you create. You get it moving there.
Yeah.
But
Also helps it
gluten
rise.
in wheat is a little known fact about it is it kills insects. So farmers like gluten in the wheat because there's less loss of crops to insects. So
Yes.
there's been genetic modification in the wheat that we grow in this country to increase the amount of gluten so that there is, less loss of crops to insects.
Very good.
And that is one of the reasons why I believe that, as kids, we didn't have this problem. And now, here we are, like having all these weird, unexplainable health problems due to gluten intolerances. And you wonder why. Where the hell did this shit come from? And if you're going to look anywhere, that's where I would start looking.
Well, you're going the other way. You're saying that there's more gluten out there, so therefore we are reacting en masse to this.
Yes.
We're basically being dosed with gluten.
I do think it's a legitimate thing because I feel so much better like stopping the gluten, and I've lived low carb for years and years and years, but the gluten I can now eat. If I eat like gluten-free cookies, I can eat cookies that I never could have ate before. I feel good.
Okay.
I used to never eat stuff like that because it made me feel crappy. So I never ate sweets and cakes and cookies and shit like that. But now, if I have the gluten-free stuff, I can.
Well,
And I don't have any adverse effects.
Can I ask you this, because I know it is related to your condition, is there a way to not completely cut out gluten, but make gluten, a smaller part of your diet? Like,
I don't think it works. It's the way I've been doing it is it's all or nothing.
Okay.
Because if you do have a negative reaction to it, they say that the adverse effects continue for 6 months past. I mean, I've read that. I don't know if it's true, but 6 months past the time that you actually ingested it.
And you say you're feeling like a lot better without the gluten.
I've lost over 20 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
Without dieting, like I stopped watching my calories anywhere near as much as I used to. And I'm still, losing.
For our friends out there, don't be concerned. He's not like a Holocaust survivor weight, so don't worry about that.
I still have, plenty more tons to go. Yeah.
More to love, as they say.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Now consider the seed of the conspiracy theory. I had a few years to think about it because, but it was on and off. But I think the theory perfectly illustrates the genesis of conspiracies. All I need is a little information, and then I looked at the big picture, I put that in quotes, and I went to a website that purported that it had a list of foods to avoid if you have sensitivity to gluten, and on that list was everything. So I come to the conclusion that either the government is trying to starve you or God is sending you a message. The message is, kill yourself, because, that's what I had to assume.
Dude, you can have almost gluten-free is really easy to do compared to if you've ever done Atkins, low carb and stuff. You can have bread and all kinds of shit. You just can't have fucking regular bread. You have gluten-free bread. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but maybe
they're doing
close enough.
Different things now with the gluten-free products, because a couple of years ago at my job, somebody brought in a birthday cake and told us all it was gluten-free. I took one bite into that, and I wanted to throw up. I mean, it was like the grossest thing I ever had.
I haven't had a gluten-free cake yet, but I've had other things. There's cookies and pretzels and shit. And frankly, some of these things I like better than the regular version. The pretzels in particular are fucking awesome. They're not quite like regular pretzels, but man, they're good.
What do you think of the theory that I just wrote up? I mean, I wrote it last night. Do you think there's elements of truth in it, or is it plausible?
No, I don't.
Or do you think a lunatic paranoid might go for it?
I think, a lunatic paranoid might go for anything. But but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying with it. I don't think it's really so plausible. I think
there's absolutely no truth in what I wrote.
I know.
I wrote it because it's very easy to write a conspiracy theory, and it's even easier to get people to believe it on some level.
Well, what's interesting to me about conspiracy theories is how these days they've made conspiracy theories out of things that are just like normal facts.
Yes.
If it's inconvenient for the Obama administration, if there's an inconvenient fact, anybody who believes that fact, which is an actual fact, is a conspiracy theorist. That was the way they operated for a number of years in the Obama.
True, not just Obama though. It was the antithesis of any government that happened to be in action, and you happen to be against that government or something. Sure. Conspiracy theories will pop up like crazy.
They kind of took it to a new level. They were anybody who questions that fake ass birth certificate that Obama put out, which obviously had layers of where it had anybody who has ever worked on a layered document on a computer, a digital document, knows that there is zero question. Now, this is not saying that Obama was not born in the United States. I really don't know, and I really don't care. But there is no question whatsoever that document that he produced, the digital document, had been manipulated. Okay. No question whatsoever. Now, how did he manipulate it? I really don't know. Did he? You
sound like a friend I had in Florida who sent a picture of the birth certificate, but he was like one of those,
Well, they put out a birth certificate, and when you open it in fucking Photoshop, it has layers. That means that somebody fucking
it wasn't just like a standard scan or anything.
It wasn't a standard scan. It had been manipulated. There is no question whatsoever about it. Now, when you say that, and that is an absolute fact, there is there's no talking around it. I've heard all of the reasons that they say possibly that might happen, that happens by default when you put in something. Bullshit. It's bullshit. I work with these things all the time. It's complete and total bullshit. There is no doubt. Now, that is not saying that they changed anything on that document but they did manipulate that document somehow.
Trump was right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, who knows? I think they put that out there to keep the thing going. They're the ones who want the conspiracy theory. If you ask me, that's a conspiracy theory right there.
Well, yeah.
But he's like
you know what it is?
Like that, though, when you look at something like that, that's right in front of your face, and I qualify as somebody who's enough of an expert on digital document work to know for a fact that that document was, without question, manipulated. And to say that, there's a whole crew of people who will call you some kind of conspiracy theory wacko. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I really don't have a dog in a fight. Obama got elected, and there's nothing I could do about it. Some of these birther people are, they're in some dreamland where if Obama gets proven that he's not eligible to be president, everything that he ever did will be erased and he'll be gone from office. Bullshit. Never going to happen. All it'll create is the worst fucking constitutional crisis in the history of the country. And nobody's ever going to deal with that. It's just never going to happen. So I really don't care about Obama. Obama's, he is what he is. I don't really care if he was born in Kenya or not. It doesn't fucking matter. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So like, seriously, I have no dog in the conspiracy theory wacko fight when it comes to that. But whatever. Anyway,
well, let's go back. About 14 years. A nice, beautiful day in September. Now, the biggest conspiracy theories to evolve over the course of the last 15 years, actually formulating right after it happened, were the terrorist attacks of September 11th of 2001. This is a big can of worms. So I think my particular form of craziness with regard to the events of September 11th was reading and absorbing every conspiracy theory available. And there were so many theories. I saw this movie called Loose Change. I even wrote a review of it for Film Threat, the website. Did you ever see Loose Change?
I didn't watch it. I didn't give a shit.
It was you know what? It was very well made for like no money. Very very enthralling to watch actually. But that was the Die Hard with a vengeance of conspiracy theories because it involved getting to the gold under the Federal Reserve. That was the whole point of the terrorist attack. It was good at the
beginning and fell apart halfway through.
Just like in the movie, okay, there was a big bomb. There was a mad bomber, Jeremy Irons, and basically he blows up a subway just so he can get access to the Federal Reserve and take all the gold out. So
there's gold in the fucking Federal Reserve, please.
That was when I got up and I took a few breaths because I was working myself into a froth, and I said, get out of the house, take a walk, breathe some fresh air, because that was when I finally just decided to hang it up. I mean, I had read so many theories. I read all of the official documents. I read that enormous book they published, and I looked at photographs. I looked at video. I looked at the jets hitting the towers, and in slow motion, and any angle they could find. Now, let's get your take on 9/11. What do you think happened?
Incompetence at all levels.
Okay. Santa Claus and Martians? No.
No, I don't see any conspiracy there. I don't see them letting it happen on purpose, making it happen on purpose. I'm familiar with all those theories. I really don't see any of that. I see government incompetence at every level. I don't think that the people, the powers that be, are anywhere near as omnipotent as would be necessary to pull off something like that and not have anybody actually, rat on them.
Right.
There would have been too many people that had to be in on it.
What's your take on the temperature of steel in order to melt and contained demolition?
I think that steel is able to be shaped, and therefore it can be melted. And I don't believe that it was a controlled demolition at all. I really don't.
And Building 7 just falling. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I mean, look, Popular Mechanics did a pretty good assessment of everything. And I probably stand with that more than anything else. I mean, what would they have to gain by doing a controlled demolition of Building
I
7?
don't know. Either gold or I don't know.
I don't buy it. There is no gold in the Federal Reserve. It's been pissed away years ago. The
So
country doesn't actually have any real money. And like it wouldn't belong to the country anyway if it belonged to the scumbag Federal Reserve.
I think if there is a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy that'll disappoint a lot of people. I think it's a conspiracy of shitty construction.
That would certainly rank.
But people
in
don't
my
want to believe
opinion.
that.
No, because it's not sexy.
No.
It's like, and I really, the conspiracies that I see are much more after the fact. The TSA and the Department of Homeland Security and all that legislation that came out of this, that's the fucking conspiracy. The Patriot Act is a fucking conspiracy. Now, that shit was written long before 9/11. They had that shit ready to go. That's
Can
a
I ask you,
conspiracy.
is this how you felt when it happened? Or did you...
No, it took... I was against the Patriot Act at the time, but I didn't know some of the stuff I know now.
I was against the
politically
Patriot
aware.
Act anyway too, because it had shades of Terry Gilliam's Brazil all in it, and it's about
It
control.
sure did, and and I used to have arguments with my dad. My dad was a Republican, and I would have these say to him, look, like you're in, okay, so you trust the guy who's in charge now. You're going to give this power to the person after him that you might not trust. You shouldn't give this power to anyone. No one, whether you trust them or not, because if you do, somebody that you don't trust will end up with it eventually, and then what will happen? And
but it was also that we were all frightened after it happened, and we spent 2002, 2003, scared, and then Iraq comes up for some reason, and
it didn't frighten me; it upset me.
It upset you.
I
was
did.
scared.
I watched my city turn into some Nazi checkpoint place with fucking where you couldn't get in. I mean, I was in Brooklyn and I couldn't get in to see my parents for 3 fucking days because there were cops at every fucking entrance and they wouldn't let you in.
Yeah.
And then when they did, they'd fucking pull you over and check your papers like you're in fucking Nazi Germany.
You know what
and
I
I'm
didn't
watching
appreciate?
the city I grew up in turn into that. And it never turned back.
I didn't appreciate having to take the train and with my daughter into the city and have to look at guys with machine guns and riot gear
I didn't like
at
that
every
either.
train station. I didn't like
I
that.
didn't like that. I didn't like that either. And that kind of stuff really bothers me because it was like not only did we have to mourn the people that died, and I knew people that died in 9/11.
Yeah.
And so you're mourning that, and then you're also mourning the place, like the final nails in the coffin of the city you grew up in, of everything that ever meant anything to you in that city just being destroyed and gone, like by the powers that be in the city, and all in the name of security and safety, and it really didn't provide anything.
Right.
It really didn't do anything. It made certain people maybe feel better, but it made me feel worse. It made me feel unsafe, and because I don't trust these fucking police with their machine guns. That doesn't make me happy.
Yeah.
That doesn't like make me feel like there's not going to be another terrorist attack because there's some douchebag standing there with
I
a
feel that a
bulletproof
lot
vest
of
and
that
machine gun.
is a show of force. It's a show of strength. It's like a production. Putting those guys out there in the uniforms with the combat, with the riot gear and the machine guns and the dogs and everything and the all that it's basically a production to make you, I guess, feel safer. But guns, especially machine guns, and especially with what we know about cops these days, I don't know that I feel that comfortable with them with their fingers.
I like
on
the
those
guns
triggers.
as long as I have them. Then it's fine. Random guys in bulletproof vests with machine guns, that doesn't make me feel safe at all. Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't know whether they're going to be pointed at me 5 minutes from now or not.
Okay, this is about September 11th. never mind that it was a terrorist attack that destroyed property, killed over 3,000 people and all. But if you look at 9/11, it's almost like an action movie. It's almost like an action movie with lots of romance and daring explosions and stuff. It almost plays out like that from the moment the first airplane hits the first tower to the final moment when the final airplane is rammed into the ground in Pennsylvania. It felt like a big, epic action movie, but we were like living inside it, right? So it goes beyond 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, okay, this is. You said you were disappointed, and I was terrified while it was happening, right? But like a year later,
disappointed. I was upset. I mean, I was
a year later. I was thinking it was, and I don't want it taken the wrong way with anybody, but their plan was brilliant. They used our airplanes against us. They hijacked them with box cutters, pretended to have a bomb on the plane. But what disappointed me most was, out of all those planes, only one group of people fought back.
Yeah, United 93.
That's what disappointed me, because that is humanity right there. That is our failing. We are not action movie heroes. If John McClane was on those planes, he would have kicked some ass. And that's not reality.
Yeah, those people on that flight were fucking heroes.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, but now I was asking you before, how did you initially feel when it happened, right? Now, after it happened for me,
I was so caught up. I mean, I'm sorry, go on.
Well, all I was going to say was I was angry and I was believing conspiracy theories, and I remember getting into a rather heated discussion with another friend of mine whose name happens to be Andrew.
Oh.
And
that
he was, we were talking. He's a really good guy. By the way, he just got a new job. He's the director of emergency operations for the state of Wisconsin. I know a guy who's a director of operations. How about that?
Cool.
Emergency operations.
You want
after 9/11, he was, after 9/11, he quit acting and he was an actor, and he married a very good friend of ours. He moved up in a small town in New York called Beacon, and he joined their fire brigade, and he wound up getting into emergency management, and he studied it in school. He got a job in New Mexico, and then now he's the director of emergency operations for Wisconsin. He was inspired by that, and I know a lot of people who are inspired to do things after September 11th. Unfortunately, I wasn't. All I was angry, and I was very liberal. I was very liberal back then, and I believed that it was a conspiracy. And I saw Fahrenheit 9/11, and I was like, "Oh, Bush did it. He did. His family. They're so powerful, and they're shaking hands with Arab terrorists or something like that." I actually did believe all that. Now, in my old age, I don't really believe it anymore, because I believe we have human failing, and this is something conspiracy theorists do not take into account. They don't take into account the epic fail, as it were.
Well, I can ask questions about that kind of stuff. I mean, why was it that they let all the Saudi people out and all of Bin Laden's relatives go when all the planes were grounded?
I think it's
and is that just mere political correctness?
Look at what they were doing to Hindu people. Hindu people in New York, all over the country, as a matter of fact. They were beating them up because they're fucking morons. They can't tell a Hindu from an Arab.
It happened like once. It's like, one asshole does not mean that Hindu people are being persecuted.
And then they ran that video footage in other countries of Muslims celebrating or something.
Well, they were. They were. And, I mean.
When that happens, you get a couple of guys from Brooklyn with some baseball bats looking for guys,
Well, I mean, yeah, but and I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of that is propaganda at the end of the day. I mean, there's an isolated incident here and there, but most people are adults about this kind of stuff, and those that aren't can be handled on a case-by-case basis.
They can. Unfortunately, they get into mobs. People who don't think for themselves are the mob mentality.
When is that happening? That I tell you what, when people go and start dragging Muslims out of their houses, then maybe I'll consider that. But that hasn't happened. It didn't happen then. It's not likely to start happening. If anybody is going to be mass murdering and killing and destroying things, it's the Muslims themselves. It's not regular Americans who are just mad at Muslims.
Mm.
I just I don't buy into that as a scenario that's real.
So were you that angry? The thing is, politically, I never really got the indication that you were like a liberal in any way. You
No,
were one of the there were only two people that I knew, you and my friend Jeremy, who were teenagers who didn't think Reagan was the Antichrist, you know.
yeah.
But you guys are political. I mean, you were informed. I mean, basically, when I was a teenager, I didn't really think about politics. All I thought about was the nuclear arms race. Remember that? How we were stockpiling nuclear weapons against the Soviet Union? That kind of stuff scared the hell out of me. That was the only thing I thought about politically.
Well, like for people who don't think about stuff politically, liberalism is like a cancer. Like it just like sort of like people who only read the headlines, they like liberalism like breeds in the minds of the misinformed and uninformed, and that's the problem. It's like people, I grew up with my dad screaming and yelling at the TV news all the time.
And throwing things at the TV, right? He stood up and
he
threw
didn't really
stuff
throw
at the
stuff, but I heard on a regular basis how Peter Jennings wasn't telling me the truth.
Okay.
And my dad would explain, what happened. And I've got a pretty good bullshit detector, so I would pick these things up.
Change the channel and watch Tom Brokaw or Dan Rather.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't telling the truth either,
Okay. I got you.
So and that was what that was just the way I grew up. So I always had a healthy distrust of what people were telling me was the news, and I learned to read between the lines of what was going on and spot an agenda in anything anybody tells me, whether it's a conservative or a liberal.
Well, I'm doing that now. I've begun to do that. I mean, I suppose maybe in the last 5 years or so, I've begun to really not trust anything that anyone ever tells me on TV.
See, now, but the thing is, the point that I was going to make there is back then, I never believed anything about what they said about George W. Bush. Now
Okay.
I'm more inclined to believe some of that. There's a lot of this stuff that just doesn't make any sense. Do I think that there's a grand conspiracy that this was planned? No. But I really, you have to question some of these things that just don't make any fucking sense.
Of course,
why are we going to war with nations that had nothing to do with this when how many like 9 of the 11 were from Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
When the whole thing was funded by Saudi Arabia,
Saudi Arabians,
kissed their rings,
one Lebanese guy, and a couple of Egyptian guys. Yeah.
We let them out of the country. We let the Bin Laden family out of the fucking country when all the planes are grounded. We go to war with 2 other countries that really didn't have any fucking thing to do with this whatsoever, claiming that it did. And there were other supposedly strategic reasons for doing that. Really, mostly I think it was financial reasons that we did that.
The gold. The gold.
No, it's about creating war in order to fakely boost the economy.
Fakely, yeah.
It's a fake. It's fake. I mean, it looks good on paper. It boosts your GDP because you're making all this crap, wasting a bunch of money on a war. That's that idiotic idea that every history professor will tell you that it's World War II that pulled us out of the Depression.
Right. Yeah.
Like none of them can really explain how that was, and when they ask him to explain, and then listen to the gobbledygook nonsense that comes out of their mouth when they do, okay. Because we're manufacturing all this crap. We're like, okay, we wouldn't have been manufacturing that crap if it wasn't for the war, and it all goes into this cycle of nonsense where there's no real market going on and there's no growth. All it is just wasted money that the government is just pouring money into. Like that's not saving anything. And then what do? We jigger the numbers. Like so that it looks like we create an idea known as retirement. Because you know why? Because retirement brings down our fucking unemployment numbers, which are horrendous. So we create this whole thing and make everybody retire.
Well, I think it was when we we moved away from the gold standard, but
Well, that certainly didn't help. But Roosevelt fucking with the price of gold while we still did have the gold standard was a major problem in the Depression as well. And really the thing that ended the Depression was Roosevelt kicking the bucket. That's what ended the fucking Depression.
polio ended.
Yeah,
the Depression.
polio ended the Depression.
You know what occurs to me that when we do our podcasts, there's an element of conspiracy in every episode we do, whether it's about cats or pop punk documentaries or this.
My cat is trying to get out, trying to escape, man. I'm telling you.
The cats did it. I have a theory about conspiracy theories. The more information that becomes freely available via the internet and news services, the more conspiracy theories are going to pop up. When it comes to conspiracies in our time, the assassination of JFK comes to mind. Most of this theory comes from, basic physics, either a sequence of extremely lucky shots by Lee Harvey Oswald or something else, something more insidious, snipers, the grassy knoll. So conspiracies seem to be our attempt to apply reasoning and rationalization to stories and ideas we deem impossible. We try to put a face on what we perceive as madness, so we invent. We use our imaginations. We say, okay, if this isn't the official story, then what is it that really happened?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
It's not just that. It's the powers that be are hiding something, and we don't know what it is, so we're left to surmise, to come up with our own ideas about what occurred, and that's where your conspiracy theories are born. They're born out of dishonesty from the government,
and we refuse to believe that official story completely because they don't give us every bit of information,
and it doesn't make sense. And there are questions that they don't answer, won't answer, can't answer, and then so these stories proliferate. And that's really where it comes from, I think. And that's why. When the government's telling you a story that doesn't make 100% sense, or they won't tell you a story at all, then you're going to make up your own story.
Yes, exactly. But I have to admit right now, I do smell conspiracy in everything. I don't believe anything the government tells me ever. In fact, I'm such a contrarian, as I've been called many times, that if the government came out and told me that the sky was blue, and it is blue, I will say, no, it's not. And I'll walk away, and then I'll invent stories in my head as to why the government would make such a statement. Did they want us to think the sky is blue? If they told me that the sky was blue, I would wonder what color the sky really is and why I can't see it right. Because they got to be lying. Why else would they be coming out telling me the damn sky was blue? So moving into JFK, we have to talk about the big one here. So there was a film. The Oliver Stone movie JFK came out in the 90s and had an enormous impact on reopening the Warren Report and at the very least bringing fresh, modern eyes to the investigation. So what did you think of the movie? Not the conspiracy theory, but the movie. Well,
I enjoyed it back then. I don't know if I would enjoy it as much now. I enjoyed it back then. I became more wise to Oliver Stone as I got older, and now I don't enjoy his stuff as much.
Not as much, no.
No, but I remember I saw that in the theater and I loved it. It went, for a 3-hour movie, it went by damn quick. Yes. It was exciting and fun and just good. I never really bought any of the crap that he was peddling, but it was.
What did you think of the conspiracy theories? You have either Oswald acting alone, or you have the Cubans involved somehow, or you have the mafia. I mean, what did you think of those theories?
I really don't know. I think the mafia being involved is quite likely. Knowing Kennedy's past.
I think he was hedging his bets because the book was not completely based on the experiences of Jim Garrison. It was based on a whole bunch of crazy theories, and I think he was just throwing stuff against the wall.
Throwing shit at the wall to see what stuck. Yeah. No, I agree. The Clay Shaw and all that other shit, a lot of that stuff was pretty outlandish, if you ask me. I don't know.
But Tommy Lee Jones' sex party with Joe Pesci and Kevin Bacon all dressed up.
God, when I think sex party, that is not what I think. Tommy Lee Jones and Joe Pesci, like, oh yeah, baby.
These guys, of course, yes. No, the movie was one of my favorites.
Telly Savalas, baby.
Yeah, Players Club. The movie was one of my favorites, but I disconnected myself from the theories.
Joe.
And I watched the movie for its own merits. I thought it was expertly acted, directed, edited. It was a masterpiece of like montage and music, sound, and photography. I have the annotated shooting script, and I use it as a guide for production when I'm writing a script and I'm trying to put the things together. It's a great Bible to have that book. So what do you believe that a conspiracy theory that you said the mafia makes the most sense, right?
And to me, yeah, it does. Just from knowing what I know. But, again, there are a lot of people, they get all fucking flustered over this stupid thing, and I really don't care.
Right, yeah.
Like Kennedy, the Kennedy assassination was a terrible thing for the nation because Kennedy wasn't going to be reelected. And we never would have had Lyndon Johnson become president and do the Great Society, and the whole world would be a lot better off. If that had never happened, if Kennedy had lived and lost re-election because he was so unpopular because he was incompetent.
So did you think? So you thought it was basically, like they say in the movie, a turkey shoot? It wasn't just Oswald because.
Tell you the truth, I don't know. Maybe it was luck. I mean, I know that the left was very unhappy with him, and because he wasn't towing the leftist line, like they thought that he should. And Oswald was a freaking commie,
right?
Whether he worked for somebody or whatever, obviously he was involved. Could there have been other guys that, I mean, the magic bullet theory and all that crap. I mean,
well, I was thinking that if you had this enormous plan to assassinate the president in Dealey Plaza in Dallas, you wouldn't just leave it to one guy with one gun. Right, you would make this a production.
True. Wasn't there something that came out that like kind of blew some of this shit out of the water like a year or two ago or something?
They talked a lot about Jim Garrison being the basis of the movie. And they talked like the year or two after that, somebody had a book about him and about how he was kind of a nut and he was kind of paranoid and stuff like that. So the 90s were a very big time for conspiracies. You had JFK, of course, but we also had like the X-Files. Conspiracy theories were the thrillers.
It's coming back, the X-Files.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They got Fox got put together a 5-episode commitment, I think, for something. Yeah. Are we getting back into that? Are we getting back into the conspiracy thriller with the big action set pieces, those movies of those time, pop culture being informed by collective paranoia? People were paranoid because we were going into the internet age around that time. And I remember a great quote from William Burroughs where he said, paranoia is just getting all the facts. But I would actually change that to conspiracy theories are just getting all the facts, like you said earlier. Mm-hmm. So there's a flat standard argument that cuts down a lot of these conspiracy theories. Now, this is the official line that you hear a lot. Is basically, if you subscribe to any theories, you concede to a government that is extremely efficient and unbelievably powerful, when in most exercises the government only advertises its incompetence. It can't get anything done. So how could it possibly put together a lot of the stuff that it's accused of?
See, and I can relate to that.
Look at the post office. All you have to do is stand in a post office line to realize that a lot of things the government tries to do, it fails miserably at.
Yeah, I know. It's fucking scary. I know. I agree with that. Really, like that. That's one of the reasons why I really discount the theory of 9/11 being,
because it sounds brilliant. I mean, if the government put it together. Just to put out like the Patriot Act, exercise more.
Everybody would have lived if the government fucking did it, I mean,
yeah. No, it would have been like some guy with a garbage truck trying to bang into the building and just not getting through,
To me, the conspiracy lies in the reaction to the event, and the incompetence leading up to it. Nobody was ever punished for it. The airlines weren't punished for allowing all these people on these planes with they were warned. Everybody was warned and nobody did anything.
Right.
But that happened again with, like, that's one of the things that I say to all these people who advocate for the Department of Homeland Security and safety issues and like listening to the phone calls and all this crap, monitoring everything we do for, to make sure that there are no terrorists. It's like, look, this fucking guy who bombed the Boston Marathon, Russia called up the U.S. government and said, yeah, this guy is bad news. He's been radicalized. He's been over here meeting with fucking like serious bad guys, and he's coming back to you. You guys need to watch him. And they didn't fucking do anything.
Yeah, they were like,
telling
they
me
were on
that
the phone.
They need
They
to
were like,
listen to my phone calls.
yeah. Yeah.
When they have the information and they don't even use it when it matters.
Yeah.
Like, what, why don't they start doing that, doing their job, and then maybe we can talk about monitoring regular citizens. But until then, they need to take their phone calls from Russia.
This is something that we were like hinting at earlier. That basically, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just sad realities. And sometimes sad realities and truths will sound like conspiracies because you don't want to, at your heart, you don't want to believe that your government is an incompetent instrument that does nothing. You want to think that you have an enemy. You want to think that you have a government that is out to get you. A lot of times this stuff has its own progression, and it isn't in a back room somewhere with one light and a bunch of people writing a script about how they're going to, rule the American people or something. It ultimately comes down to power. That's
pinky in the brain trying to rule the world.
Yeah. So on that, I'm gonna end this episode. This has been BlissVille, and I was Dave Lawler, and I will not be here next week because somebody is going to kill me.
Oh no, it's a conspiracy. Well, I'll be here next week.
It's like somebody has their hand on my throat right now.
Maybe I'm the one doing it.
Trying to cut down BlissVille.